If you deliver a bad presentation or a bad meeting with your data or analysis, it may render all of that hard work worthless. Worse, it may erode your credibility and your trust as a data analyst or data scientist. When delivering insights or results of an analysis or a data science model, I've seen a lot of people struggle with their communications with stakeholders. Now, some of these issues come up in the form of how it's being delivered, but a lot of others are around the visualizations that are being displayed on screen. What I frequently see is some really unpolished visualizations inside of Excel spreadsheets or inside of dashboards. For example, when you look at something like this, it is extremely hard to tell what's being presented. We don't see any column headers here, we don't know what these column header values mean, and there's no units of measurements being listed here at all either. Then the second thing that we see here is another pivot table, and we're not really sure how is that table any different from the one up above. Now, I'm guessing the data analyst or data scientist knows what's going on because they put it all together, but for everybody else in the room, there's massive confusion being created. Immediately, when this visualization gets presented in the room, all the people start staring at the screen and they're not really sure what any of this stuff means. What happens next is generally one of three things. First, a bunch of stakeholders start asking a lot of questions about the data being presented. This tends to distract from the original message that you're trying to communicate, and it wastes a lot of time for everybody in the room. Also, it makes the analyst or scientist look sloppy, and that's not good for their career. The second thing that tends to happen is your stakeholders might be silent, but they're sitting there staring at the screen trying to figure out what it all means. Since they're doing this while you're talking and presenting on the data, they're likely not paying that close attention to what you're trying to communicate. That means they're missing your message. This likely means that they're not paying attention to the key messages that you're trying to deliver because they're trying to sort through the confusion on the screen. Again, this harms your communication and makes you come across as being a confusing presenter. And the third thing that ends up happening is they get too confused and they just completely check out. When a stakeholder is really busy and they see massive confusion like this, they might assume that the communication's really bad and the person can't present, and they're just going to go on to something better because they're not going to waste time trying to understand this. Now, the end result of all of this is, even though you could have gone through and done an amazing analysis or built an amazing model, the fact that the communication is not clear and it's not well presented to stakeholders means that your work can be rendered worthless. Instead of capitalizing on an opportunity to provide great insights to the business and showcase yourself in the best light, the opposite tends to happen. Also, when this happens, chances are you're probably not going to get a second attempt to go back to the stakeholder and represent your analysis or your model. This is because, depending on the situation, you may only get one opportunity to present to certain stakeholders, and if you blow it, you blow it. This is because those stakeholders are too busy to take another meeting, and for those other stakeholders that do have time to take another meeting, they won't do it because they think that they already understood your message, even though they didn't understand it as clearly as you would have liked. So whenever you're working as a data scientist or a data analyst, it is really important that when you show up to meetings, your visualizations always look polished and you're not having people hunt around on the screen to figure out what your data actually means.